Right, so I've got a question for the audience today. Do I look like a scary guy to you? Yeah. Okay. Well, we're supposed to say no, but because I was in school one day and they came up to me and they told me that they were afraid of me. And I don't mean in the sort of sense that, you're talking, you make jokes. I mean like they said it to me in that careful tone honesty has when it knows it might not be like appreciated and be met with hostility. It hit me like someone just shot me with a beanbag gun, like a body shot. And I sat in my car ride home. I was replaying every sharp joke, every sarcastic comment, every time I'd ignored someone's smile to exude a sense of confidence. Because I'll tell you, it was a lot easier to feign confidence than to look into a mirror. Because the truth is, I was not confident, I was loud. And that volume was a type of camouflage for a silence I didn't know how to live in. However, this, I guess you could say, coping method did work. So I continued to do it until it became less about something that I actually did and instead was who I was. I can distinctly remember it was a year after my 8th grade math class. I was taking pre-algebra. In that math class, I sat at a table with this kid. After the math class was over, I didn't see this guy. Like, I go to a pretty small school. I may have saw him in the hallways, but that was kind of it. Then I saw him a year later. He came up to me, but before he said anything, I cut him off. And I was like, yo, dude, I haven't seen you in a minute, bro. What's up? What happened? And he said to me, yeah, I'm not going to lie to you, I was avoiding you. And asking him why, he told me that he had been avoiding me for a very simple reason. He was afraid of me, but more specifically, what I might say. Now, I went throughout my day, but when I got home, I kept having that moment sort of replay in my head over and over and over again. I couldn't get it out. And I realized that there's sort of been a sentence I was dodging and burying all that time. It's very simple. It's 5 words. All you're saying is that I am what I repeat. And it sounds simple, but the reason why this hits is because when you say that, you are challenging the very popular notion that your identity and how you act is something that you make, something that you choose. When you say this, you're saying, no, it's not any of that. It's just what you keep doing over and over and over again. It's what you default to when no one's staring you down with a magnifying glass. And looking at my defaults, it was pretty obvious why people would get annoyed with me. It's sarcasm, interruption, over-the-top stories. Shoot, people, they started getting quiet around me. My friends started getting quiet around me. Group chats died when I joined, invitations thinned out. It's not because people forgot who I was. It was just because this notion of me that I myself had built walked into these rooms before I did. And once you see this pattern, you also start seeing its receipts. Let's say that you're in a class. You got a classmate, he's telling a story that really matters to them. You interrupt with a funny version. I mean, yeah, it's funny. Like, everybody laughs. But then you keep doing it. Because it worked once, do it again, and again, and again. But then, the people around you also realize that they're not limited either. You're going to do it to them too. And so messages dwindle down from sentences to single messages to nothing, and then to nods in the hallway at best. It's not out of random chance. It's because you have a bill that you did not pay at all. Now, I will also concede for some of you, I don't know if this affects all of you, but sometimes you may not choose the loops that you're stuck with per se. For me, it was checking things once, twice, 10 times. I could see something, I could tell myself at school, but then 60 seconds later, I'd still feel the pang of doubt. It would come back sharper and drag me into my mind again. I remember, this was a very vivid memory. It's stuck in my head for some reason. But it was like one morning, I made a really slight error. It was like a white lie. I'm pretty sure it was about the color of my socks, whether they were black and white. It was really that unimportant. There would have been zero change if I told the truth anyways. But it had a lot of gravity in my mind. So like it got to the point where I was having like a full-blown like near panic attack because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is so bad, I'm gonna go crazy, I'm gonna go crazy. And like I just sat on my bed and I was trying to tell myself like stop, to calm down. But it didn't particularly work. It'd work for like half a second and then, bam, we're gone. In all of that mess, I sort of learned something. I'm going to keep having these issues unless I do something about it. Because repetition in your mind, it doesn't care about how you're feeling, how you're thinking. All it does, it has one job. It just keeps doing the same action over and over and over again. And the cost of that whole story wasn't just minutes that I was late. It was also trust. Because obviously, I started lying about why I was late, engine trouble, whatever. I didn't tell the truth. Because why would I tell the truth? Like, what am I going to tell him? Sorry, I was arguing with my brain. Give me 5 minutes. Like, that makes 0 sense. Your brain's yours, right? Well, clearly, in this case, it wasn't. However, in all of that, because it kept happening for me, like, it wasn't just that. There was lots of different things, small things like that would cause me those issues. And I found myself a hinge. When I mentioned those 60 seconds I could get away with earlier, I actually began learning how to use those. In that 60 seconds of that slight calmness that I had, I could apply a counter, very small. It could just be me telling me, hey, stop, do this instead. It could be microscopic, like moving past the early example, it could be like if I'm someone who always concerns about zippers, check your zipper once, all right, and tell yourself you already checked it, it's fine. Push a thought away, maybe put your palm on the wall. Count to 10 slowly, and then turn around. Let the discomfort chase you, but don't turn around to meet it. This method of dealing with your problems, it's sloppy, it's messy, but it does work. Now, take those same physics and let's apply them to my mouth. Because remember, I was not a good guy. So let's apply these to my mouth, right? I realized, okay, this is something that I always do, right? Like I always make these interruptions, so why don't I tell myself, hey, don't do this instead. I got myself 2 sentences at a minimum. The first thing I wanted to tackle was interrupting. So I said, okay, fine. Right after someone finishes talking, to show that you genuinely care about what they're speaking about, ask a follow-up question, and then say whatever you want to say. Maybe when someone's speaking and they take a pause, instead of immediately moving in with what you want to say, wait a heartbeat, wait a moment, because what if they just need to catch their breath? It was a mess. Week 1 was very sloppy. There was lots of like, sorry, finish your thoughts, my bad. There was a lot of realizing I had already taken the wheel after the wheel was taken. Week 2 was better though, less collisions. And then skip forward a couple weeks, people began answering my questions with less than surface level ball knowledge. Like, they started telling me things that didn't require me to make it funny or make it entertaining. And after a summer had passed, a friend came up to me. He was like, dude, you're like a completely different person. You've changed so much. And the key part of that is when I took that feedback, it didn't land as praise for who I imagined I was, like this grand person. No, it landed as just critiques for who I wanted to be in the future. You might think that changing all of these behaviors, it erases our former identity. But it doesn't. It just rewrites it into something better. And that's one of the most important parts. Now, I know I've said a decent bit of stuff here about changing your brain and things like that, but obviously you're wondering like how does that even work? It's not just suicides. So here's what's up. Basically, in your mind, your brain, it has neurons. And with your neurons, every time that you make a new habit, every time that you do something, it's rewiring those neurons. Let's say that you always like picking a certain shoe up before you leave. You do that enough, your brain's going to go, okay, you keep doing that, I'm going to make it easier for you, because the brain's also indifferent. It doesn't care if what you're doing is good or bad. It just says, you did it yesterday, I'll make it easier for you today. And obviously, that's great news if the loop is something that you want to continue doing, but it's horrible news if that's something you want to break. That's partially why bad habits are so hard to break, because when you have to break a bad habit, you're making the conscious effort to rewire your entire mind to go from I will do this over and over and over again to I don't want to do this anymore. But that's the only way you can do it, because it all boils down to brain chemistry, not philosophy, and that's the only way that you can do it. You know, a new identity, you can't like pretend your way into it. A new behavior, you can't pretend your way into it. You have to repeat your way into it. Now, all this identity talk brings up something else. And it's the fact that a lot of us may believe personally that identity is only private. Like we might think, okay, it's just me, but it's not. It's just really not. Look past yourself. Once you look past yourself, you're going to see all the fingerprints of all the people you've ever let close to you. Their loops can shape your loops, and your loops can shape theirs. And that's why making a conscious decision to choose what you're doing and choose what you're repeating is so important. Let's say you're in a situation where you're repeating something good. The people who are around you, who see you every day, they might look at you and go, well, shoot, he's doing it. Maybe I should do it too. When you make the conscious effort and you have the courage to change something that should be changed, they're going to see that, and they're going to go, well, I should probably change that too. That's why I also believe that change is a pattern, not a moment. The first person I ever apologized to, I kept it really real to them. I was like, yo, I'm not going to lie to you. I was insecure. I made fun of you. I'm sorry. And all this like didn't fix the relationship immediately. No, it did not. No way it didn't. However, that kind of honesty, repeating it over and over and over again, installed a new routine. And just as I mentioned earlier, being honest and being true to myself became much easier because we kept doing it. And I've talked a lot so far about all the different things that you can do, right? But you might wonder, how can I implement these? Because everything needs some exercise. So here's 3 things I'm going to recommend to you. I've done all of these. I do recommend all of these. The first one is a 3-mirror check. You can get more people, but try to have a minimum of at least 3, and just text them. They have to be people that you talk to a decent bit, but text them and ask them, what's one thing that I always do? Always say, always act, whatever it is. And then whenever they tell you, don't like try and defend it. Don't try to explain it. Don't say, oh, but this. No, just note it down and call it a day. Note it down, and whichever one hurts you the most, whichever one makes your face the reddest, that's the one that you have to fix first. The second one is one that I said I did earlier. Get a couple replacement sentences or actions. Again, maybe you just ask a follow-up question if you're someone who just likes getting up and leaving. Maybe say one encouraging thing if you're someone who's always talking about flaws. Maybe if you're that type of person who keeps thinking they left the oven on, check the oven once and call it a day. Just walk away. The third one requires a piece of paper. I recommend a piece of paper. It's not going to hit the same if you do it on Google Doc. But get out this piece of paper. On one side, write down all the different things that you value in your life. And on the other, flip it around. Just write all the things that you actually do. Then take a look at one side, take a look at the other. Wherever something doesn't match, that's something that you have to fix. I mean, you have to fix it. And for the 3-mirror check, when I did it, I'll tell you about 2 today. The first one, it did sting. They were like, yeah, I'm not going to lie to you, bro. You always turn your conversations into a competition. I don't know if you mean to or not, but you do it. Like, that hurt, but I sort of took it, and I was like, okay, it is what it is. I noted it down. The other one was a bit better. They said, hey, ironically, you always notice when someone else goes quiet. I also noted that down because that gave us 2. That gave us one we need to get rid of and one that we need to keep. Some days, though, I still feel the tug of a joke that would pull the room into my direction. Some days I still feel that irrational ideas. But I got my own things against that now, and today's about building yours. I'm not going to whitewash. I'm not going to say, what I said to you, I am what I repeat. That's not a slogan. It's a steering wheel. Because if you don't rewrite all these bad habits and these stuff that you constantly do, they're going to rewrite your life for you. And they're going to do it quietly, faithfully, and without mercy. I personally used to be one of those people who thought identity was something that you chose. But now I know it's what you always do. I used to think change was a grand decision that you started at midnight when you got some motivation. But now I know it's something that you constantly work on improving. Because maybe in your life, when you get these feelings of being stuck and you have no direction, maybe you're not stuck. Maybe you are just rehearsing the wrong script that wasn't meant for you. So recognize it and change it, or you're never going to be who you're meant to be.